What I'm doing now is bending the part number F706B, I think it is. It's the 1/8 inch thick piece of aluminum. It's kind of triangle shaped that gets bolted to the outside of the end rib of the aileron. It's the aileron that's at a, or it's the rib on the aileron that's at an angle. This thing gets bolted to it. And you have to bend it a little bit because one end of it gets riveted to a heavy 90-degree piece of aluminum angle, and then the remainder of the part gets bolted to that angled piece of, or the angled rib on the end of the spar. So you have to pre-bend this part to fit. So what I have elected to do, the plan shows you where to mark the part along the bottom. I'll show you that here in a minute when I get this taken apart. You mark that line, you set that up on your vise, and then you bend it and kind of fit it. Now the instructions say it's supposed to be bent to, I don't know, a 6.3 or a 3.6 degree angle, whatever. I like to trial fit it and make it fit real time, and I don't really care what the angle degrees are. But in order to bend it without putting a curve in the part, this is what I do. I just use a couple of pieces of 3/4 inch wood, C-clamp it directly onto roughly the center of the part. And by the center of the part, I mean in this dimension, left and right. The part is basically centered left and right onto here, if that makes sense. You don't want to bend, you don't want to clamp it out here. You want to make sure you clamp it right onto the part. You need to keep this edge, I'm bending toward me, so this edge needs to be up off the vise so it has room to bend down. And you can see I've already got a pretty good bend in it already. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to try to do this one-handed. These pieces of plywood are probably going to fall all over the place, or not. Set these down. Stay there. This is the part I'm talking about here. So along the bottom of the vise is where I have the line drawn that's given on the plans, and this part you want it to maintain flatness. You don't want to just grab this and honk on it because you'll end up putting a bend on this. So of course this all needs to be tweaked. I'm going to try to do this again without dropping the part on the floor and holding the camera. So there's the part. Let me get a better background here. You can see the line drawn here, and you can see the bend. So that's how I do it. I'm just going to test fit this on and off until I get it to fit correctly, and then I'll show you what that's like before I start riveting. So here is that part that I just bent. That part is 706 Bravo, and it's on the end of the aileron, and it gets bent roughly through here. I don't know if that line will show or not, but here's the line spec'd out from the plans, and it's bent so this face lays on this rib, and then this face is going to lay on this 90-degree bracket that you have to make, and this is 706 Alpha. So what happens is there's a single hole back here that you can Cleco 706 Bravo to, and then you can just lay on the skin here. That's pretty much the correct orientation. And then you fit your what did I say these were? 704 Alpha. It gets fitted inside here. So like I said, this is a 90-degree piece of angle, and it sits on the spar, and then this face has to be 90 degrees to that to mate, and then this gets bent at an angle because this rib is bent at an angle. So you want to make sure that this fits flat against the rib, and then when you have this 704 alpha in place, you want to make sure that this part of 704 alpha sits up against the spar, and while holding it there, you want to make sure that this part of 706 Bravo rests nicely on this angle. And you can do all that. I can't with a single hand, but that's initially what you're looking for. And then of course you want this face of alpha to be even with this face of Bravo. And you can, when you go to actually drill these, you can adjust alpha up and down so it's in line with Bravo here and here. Actually, I think it ends up being a little bit shorter, which is nice, but when you get it all figured out and together, that's what you're going to have. And of course, I'll continue to go over this as I get stuff match drilled and clecoed. So from here, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead, I haven't decided, I don't know if I should go ahead and start match drilling these holes so I can pin this tight against the rib and then work on this part here, or if I should go ahead and, I think I'll do that. I think, because the instructions tell you to use this as an anchor point. So I believe I'll go ahead and I'm going to take this off. This is still in the rough, so I'm going to uncleco this part. I'm going to do all my edge cleaning, cleco it back on, and then I think I'll start match drilling it to this rib to hold it flat and hold it tight, and then I can start fitting this bracket along here and to the spar. I think I'll try that. Alright, so what I did was I went ahead and I clecoed this cleco through the existing hole in this bracket here and the rib. And then, like I said, I just let this bracket kind of lay on the skin here. Now, I'm not comfortable with a single cleco and this bracket being able to flop around as I try to match drill these holes. So what I ended up doing was I clecoed it here, let it rest on the skin, and then I chose a hole out at the other end, let's say this one. And just like I've done in the past, I've taken a drill bit, fit it through the hole in this bracket, and just turned it a few times to make a mark on the rib. So then I took this cleco out, pulled this bracket out of the way, used a center punched that mark, used a very tiny drill bit, drilled the hole, then I went up to a number 40, enlarged the hole, then I came back, put this bracket back on, clecoed it here again, and then I match drilled this hole in the bracket to that small hole that I pre-drilled, and that match drilled it very nicely. Now at that point it's anchored at two ends. It's not going to go anywhere. So then I went ahead and very gently match drilled the rest of these right to full size, and then I came back and match drilled this one to full size. So now that made this bracket match drilled and pulled tight against this rib. One thing I want to make note of before I forget, when this bracket is out of the way and you're pre-drilling the hole in the rib here, when you're done, make sure you get all the shavings cleaned off of this skin, because when you put this bracket back on, if it rests on those shavings, it's going to mess up your alignment. So after you pre-drill, make sure you clean all the shavings off of the skin so this bracket can lay on here nice and cleanly, and then match drill. So now that that's in place and secure, I went ahead and I brought over my 704 Alpha bracket, pushed it against the spar, pushed it against the Bravo bracket here, and then centered it up and down so that it was even with the Bravo bracket here and here. That helps ensure that when you drill these holes here and here on the ends that you have plenty of edge distance. But you want it to be centered up and down on this bracket, which will automatically center it up and down on the spar as well. So I went ahead and did that. I brought it over, centered it up and down, made sure that it was pushed tight against the spar, and then put these two Cleco clamps on to hold it. After the two Cleco clamps are on, you can still come in here and push on this, make sure it's tight against the spar, and then double check your alignment along the bottom here and here to make sure it's centered. So now at this point I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my drill bit, I'm going to come into this hole here, spin it around, mark the bracket, take these clamps off, take the bracket off, center punch that mark, drill it a couple of sizes, put it back into here, and then match drill it. Once it's match drilled, I can put a Cleco in here, and then I can start on the other holes. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is I need to take this skin off so I can have access to the inside area of this rib. This bracket, right along this area here, there are holes in this rib that need to be match drilled to this bracket. So I've got to drill from the inside out, and I need to take the skin off to do that. Prior to doing that, since I have all of this Clecoed in place, I went ahead and enlarged this hole to 1/4 inch from this bracket through this rib. And I also went ahead with using a long 12-inch drill bit. I drilled these two number 30 holes so I can put Clecos in those. And that will help hold the alignment between the spar and this bracket and this bracket and this piece here. So I'll put the two Clecos in. This will all be held together as a unit. Then I can take the skin off to back drill the holes from this rib to this bracket. With the top skin removed, I was able to finish drilling these other holes in this bracket here and Clecoed it together. So now this is an entire finished assembly with all the Clecos to hold it nice and tight and in place. So now I used this long 12-inch drill, number 30 drill, and I fed it from the back side through here, and again, like before, using these holes that are in the rib. I just went ahead, drilled through the rib. There's holes in the rib, there's holes in the spar, so I went through those holes and left a little mark on the back side of this heavy 1/8 inch thick piece of angle. I didn't drill all the way through because again, you've got this thin aluminum and this thin aluminum. If you try to punch through this thick 1/8 inch bracket, there's a good chance that the bit is going to walk around and you're going to enlarge these holes in the thin aluminum. So like always, you just want to go through and make a mark on the back side of this heavy bracket. So at this point, I'll remove the bracket and I'll drill it out to the full size number 30. Cleco it back in place, and then I'll use it as the drill guide to drill this way into the thin pieces of aluminum here, just to match drill it as an assembly. So I'm going to do that next. Take the bracket out, drill it on the drill press, reinstall it, and then match drill from this direction so that this assembly will be complete. Just another little side note tip. It just so happens that some of these angle pieces, they have this radius on the inside here. Some 2x4s, like this one that I just happen to have as scrap, they have almost the exact same radius as the part. I mean, I'm actually surprised how perfect that is. So you can use a 2x4 like this if you need to drill some of your angle pieces and you need some kind of a curve relief, if you will, to get the angle to lay nice. So you could use this particular 2x4 and drill your holes. I was just impressed that the radius around this 2x4 is the same as the brackets that we play with on our RVs. So I just thought I'd show you that, just as a tidbit if you're looking for something to drill into. So like I said, I took this bracket over to the drill press and I went ahead and drilled these 3 holes to size, number 30. I brought the bracket back over like you see it here, clecoed it back in place. I put the clecos on the back side so that they're not interfering with the drill. And then I match drilled from this side through the thick 1/4 inch or thick 1/8 inch aluminum bracket and match drilled the thinner aluminum rib and spar. So it would be these holes back in here. So now that's all match drilled. The last thing that I need to do is drill the holes for this nut plate. So there's a nut plate that goes here, and I'm going to do that next. All I'm going to do is I'm going to uncleco everything. I'm going to take this bracket out. I'm going to take this rib off, and then probably aligning this bottom edge here of this bracket with the bottom edge of the rib, and then running something through here to hold them together. I can go ahead and drill the nut plate. But I'll explain that as usual as I get there and as I go through it.